in the Asia or?
In your experience. In your experience.
You mean the in the Asia or you? I mean, I don't understand the question.
You said in Asia. Do you live in Asia?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay, so then tell me about what you know. Tell me.
I think in Asian, the way they people communicate to others are more like not too free like, as a Eastern in the West.
Mm-hmm.
They communicate like in your country like America, they are free to talk about themselves. But we in Asia, they kind of like they are not too open-minded and
Okay. So you believe that not only age, but culture. I think you said two things. I'm going to repeat and you correct me, okay? The second thing you said is that you believe that in Asia, as compared to the West, maybe people talk less just about themselves. Okay. And then the first thing you said, I think, is that you believe that also in Asia, that when you talk to an older person, you may speak differently. An older and a younger person speaking together is different than when a young person and a young person speak together. Yes. Or two people of the same age group speak together. Yeah. Do you speak differently to, say, someone who's your grandparents' age than you would to your friends?
Yes, of course. It's easier to communicate with friends more than parents.
Okay. Before you said more free or restricted, but I also want to ask you, do you think that you actually use different words when you communicate with your people in your own age group than with someone who is older? Do you actually have a different kind of language that you use, or different words or phrases or ways of saying things?
Different attitude.
Different attitude. Okay, that's very big. And of course, it is very common around the world between youth and old, this difference in attitude, communication, the way that we act, and certainly the way that we talk. Young and old people have a love-hate struggle in how we approach life, for sure. So I want to get one more thought in and move to the second question as well. Huang Zhang, you're still there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just calling to make sure you're paying attention. So I want you to call on one of your classmates to help us with the question number 1 and 2, okay?
Yes. I was called Ngọc Linh.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. So yes. Do you see the first and the second questions?
I need to answer the question 1 or 2.
Both.
Both. The question one, you can ask again.
Your age.
I'm 22 to 27.
Ah, so you're a little bit older than most of the people.
Yes, I'm actually I'm 22.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Do you think you are more mature now than you were, say, 18 months ago?
I think I'm mature than when I 18.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what about question number 2?
The country I spend the majority of my childhood is Vietnam, and in detail, it is Hải Dương City.
In Haizung. Okay.
Yes.
Haizung is very industrious, I believe.
Not really.
No? What is Haizung known for?
It's known for green bean cake.
Green bean cake, especially for Tet Tan then, I guess.
Yes.
Do you think, is Haizung a city, or is it a town or a village?
Where I live? Actually, I live in a small town in Hải Dương City, and it's called Minh Tân.
Minh Tân. Okay, you're from a small town.
Yes.
And do you live in Hanoi now?
Yes, I live in Hanoi with my sister.
Oh my gosh, so you live in the big city.
We just rent a house and live here. Okay. But in the future, maybe we have the plan to come to Hải Dương, okay. And not true to live in Hanoi because it's crowded and big, and I don't like the noise in Hanoi.
Okay, so you don't too much like city life.
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes I like, but sometimes I want to take time and have a chance to relax in the peaceful place.
Now, I come from a big town, not a small town, but a big town. Yes. We call it a city, but it's only just a city. It's called Louisville. And I know in my country that people from the big city, they communicate very differently than us in the small towns. They communicate in the way they speak and their body language. How about you? Do you think people in Hanoi communicate differently than people in your small town?
I think just the accent and the other is not different too much.
Okay. Yes. Do you think there's a different attitude?
The attitude?
Is there a city attitude?
I don't think so. I think it depends on each people.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to get some others in. Do you know of any of your other classmates who come from a small town?
Chu Hiền.
Chu Hiền.
Yes.
Chu Hiền, are you there? Do you come from a small town? And do you live in Hanoi now, or? Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So do you think that people in the city communicate differently in your experience? Mhm. Okay, I agree. And that's a big feature of city life, that there are so many different kinds of people that they often have to communicate differently because they're all different. Can you think of one way that you've noticed that communication is different as compared to where you come from? Give why don't you explain the example, and we will get one of your classmates to involve who maybe can hear the example, see if you can demonstrate the example. So you can go ahead, share in Vietnamese, and I will get, and I want you guys to listen closely to help me understand the difference that she's going to show. So you're going to show a difference in dialect? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you even have different words to express very similar, very basic things. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'd like to get someone from a large city. Who's from a large city? Do you know of any of your classmates that are from a large city? Maybe from Hanoi? Okay. Phang Anh?
I'm here.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great.
Okay, where are you from, Phang Anh?
I'm from Hanoi.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear if someone is not from Hanoi?
Yes, actually, I have some friends at the university that they are not from Hanoi, and I still can hear them.
Okay. So of course it's maybe the dialect is different, some words are different.
Yeah.
But
The,
how
their
else?
accent, and they also use the words different from me. But I can still understand what they say.
Now, there is an interesting phenomenon that we notice across the globe. There's a trend that we see in culture. And one of the ways that we see culture, of course, is language and dialect. We know that dialects can change even in 40 to 50 kilometers. One of the trends that we notice across the North and South, both worldwide, but also within a country, Southern people tend to speak more softly, slowly. Sometimes people even say that they speak more politely. And so even in our own nations, we have different ways of seeing the different accents that we have in one language. And I wonder if you have thought about how the different accents in Vietnam both sound and how people think about them. I know, for example, many people have a special adoration for the accent that comes from Hue, or even the food that comes from Hue. I mentioned Hue 10 times during our session today. What do you think? Can you hear different regional accents in Vietnam? And how does it sound to you? How do you compare the sounds? Are you still there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Could you compare and contrast some of the different accents, two different accents you know in Vietnam?
I only can know the accents from some regions like Nghệ An or Hà Tĩnh.
Okay.
And actually I cannot compare them or what they are different.
Do they sound different, or how do you know they're different?
I'm just hearing and know that they are different.
Mm-hmm. And also, another way we always see difference is people from big cities, people from small towns, what we call urban and rural. Can you hear if someone is from a small town? Can you hear if someone is from a small town?
I think yes.
Okay. What might you hear, for example? I know we often don't think about these things, so take a moment to think about it. How might someone from a small town communicate differently than someone from a large city? And I want everyone to please also, you can chat in the chat area. What are some differences if you were to compare what we call urban and rural ways of communication or talk? We know that dialects or accents can be different, but how else might we compare and contrast? So please use the chat area. I just want to write the question as well in the chat area. How would you compare and contrast city and rural accents? How do you compare these? Give you a moment to think about this, because think about it. Everyone here has grown up in Vietnam. Some of you, I can also see, have specified where you have grown up. And oftentimes we know without knowing these differences in how we communicate. We also associate value with them. Some of you I see have also grown up gaming in the virtual world. We think about we think about differences and different ways of communicating in different ways, and particularly at your age, we start to shift a lot about how we communicate. For example, you're in university, you're learning many more words and new ideas. So of course, this will shape the way that you communicate. Equally, you're also at the end of adolescence, the end of your physical, emotional growing, not emotional, sorry, your physical growing period. So certainly this also is a different way of communicating and being in the world. And equally, you're shifting from the responsibilities of a young person to the responsibilities of a working person, which, as your classmate mentioned, even shifts the topics that you speak about, let alone some of you may become parents in the future as you move in the different age groups. So this again will shape what you talk about and will even shape how you talk. As we know, parents use a very specific toddler talk when they speak to babies. Again, what we mentioned at the top of today's session. But one of the ways that we really do see young people claiming their own status as adults is often adopting a more urban way of talking. The city way of talking and being and city attitudes are often more valued, seen as more sophisticated. And this is, of course, why many people, even someone like me who comes from a southern town, I went to university in another region, and even my classmates would laugh at me when I would tell them where I'm from. Because in our dialect, I say that I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. But it is written and it is spelled Louisville. So thus the urban differences. And because my classmates started to, in a sense, embarrass me for speaking in such a Southern way, without knowing, I started to shift how I even talked about my own hometown, such that most of the time I say I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Now, there are more questions here that I want to ask you about languages, because there's another way that we see the urban-rural divide and hierarchy, and it'll come up later when we talk about fashion. So hold on to this idea, and we'll come back at it again, not only in terms of how we talk, but how we see and use nonverbal communication. So let's get someone else involved here. Chu Ti Hien, are you there? How many languages do you speak? Okay. How did you come to, why do you want to learn English? Or why do you use English? Why is English important for you? Mm-hmm. Okay. So English gave you access to educational opportunity. That's great. That's a real important usefulness, utility of language. Do you plan to study more languages? Okay, Why? Why do you want to study another language? Mhm. Okay. So even you are using another language to gain access to travel. That's amazing. That is amazing. I want us to all observe that we are all using language to empower ourselves in one way or another for opportunities. As I mentioned to you, I started with Spanish and then French. And my motivation to learn French was exactly like yours. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go to places that were different from where I grew up, just to see and experience. And I found that learning language has done that. That's great. And by the way, 안녕하세요. Do you know what language that is? It is Korean. I lived in Korea for 2 years. It was my second job after graduating from university. So certainly we know that the ability to speak in multiple languages is also what has empowered us to be here, to share this opportunity today. Language is that powerful. Now, let's look at question number 4. Can you speak about question number 4 for us? Can you see question number 4? Uh-huh. Did you grow up speaking the same language that your parents grew up speaking? Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. So can you see the question?
Yes.
Okay. So did you grow up speaking the same language that your parents grew up speaking?
Yes.
Okay, which was?
What?
What's the language?
Vietnamese.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, do you think there are people in Vietnam who grow up speaking a different language than their parents grew up speaking?
Actually, no. So I think only who grew up in other country will speak different. You speak the different language their parents grew up speaking.
Well, do you know that there are some languages in Vietnam that are different from Vietnamese?
Some language for some
like Chinese, like my grandmothers, they were Chinese, but I'm born in Vietnam, so I speak Vietnamese.
Okay, so your grandparents, did they come to Vietnam from another country?
Yes.
Okay, so your grandparents actually migrated. My father also migrated. So I grew up speaking English, but my father grew up speaking the language from where he comes from in Nigeria, which is called Ijaw. It's a small part of Nigeria. It's a small ethnic group in the southern part of Nigeria. And I also know that Vietnam has some small ethnic groups that have their own language. Are you aware of this? For example, is it Thanh Hoa? Is it Thanh Hoa? Do you guys know of minority ethnic languages in Vietnam? How about you? Thich Nhóc? Chan Thich Nhóc Nin?
I think in the west west north of Vietnam, some people talk different language.
Okay.
Yes, they have their own language.
They have their own languages.
No, they the people live in this area. They have their own language.
Yes. In fact, yes. I know I've met some people from many different areas in Vietnam that have their own language.
Yes.
And they live in Hanoi. They came to Hanoi so that they could learn and study at university. Some came in high school or younger for opportunity.
Yes. But I think in my university, some people in the border, like come from Laos, they came to Vietnam and they study here.
That's right. That's right. And you often find that they have to speak multiple languages.
Yes.
But the question is, what language do they teach their children? This is a big struggle for many of the friends I have in Hanoi, because they want their children to know about their culture and their language back home, but they live in the city and there are very few people around to speak the language with. And the children only get to hear and learn Vietnamese. And they speak a very different language than what they grew up speaking, or their parents or grandparents. And sometimes they can't even communicate with their own grandparents because, in fact, I know a woman, one of my students, when I lived in Hanoi, her parents still lived in this village in Thanh Hoa and made honey for them. It was so beautiful. But her parents spoke very little Vietnamese. And so her children really needed to learn their native language. So, how much do you see this is one where we often see in Vietnam people who come from these places. So same question to you. Chan Thi Nhok Lin. There are 5 questions here, and I'd like for you to talk us through the questions. Can you see each question? I'll make it a little bit bigger.
I see the question.
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So can you go through each question for me and tell us your answer?
For the first question, I think my name reveals my ethnic and ethnic. I don't know. I don't.
Heritage?
Yes.
Ethnic heritage?
Yes.
So your name would suggest where in the world you come from?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm come from Vietnam, and my name is also related to my nationality.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And I think only some of your classmates, how many? Only about almost 30% feels fairly certain. I wonder who's not at all, who thinks that their name does not reveal. What about me? Do you think my name reveals my heritage? Dieprie Cuckoo?
Maybe yes.
Maybe yes. Okay. By the way, do you know my ethnic heritage?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Yes. Do you want to know?
Yes, if you share with us.
Okay. Well, do you remember I told you what my hometown is? Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. I write it for you. Can you see?
Yes.
Do you know where this is?
America.
Yeah. Have you heard of Kentucky before?
KFC.
Yeah, KFC. It's one of our largest companies, certainly. Now, of course, my name does not suggest I am from Louisville, Kentucky. So it does, however, reflect where my father comes from. I mentioned, do you remember where I said my father comes from? I just mentioned.
Nigeria.
Remember, yes, Nigeria, from the southern part of Nigeria. And so if you are familiar with Nigeria, you would probably know specifically the region of Nigeria my name comes from. So not only would you know that my name is Nigerian, but you would equally know the specific ethnic group that my name comes from. So my name is extremely revealing. In fact, most people at least identify my name as somewhat African. So does it reveal my ethnic heritage? Half of it, but I'm also American. So now, Chan Thi Nhok Lien. Thi Nhok. What do I call you? Thi Nhok? What is your name?
Ling. Just Ling.
Ling,
yes.
Okay. How about the way that you dress? Does it reveal your culture or religion or anything else about your background?
I think yes.
Okay, for example?
For example, in my country, we are famous for áo dài. But in another country, like in I don't know. In Japan, is famous for kimono. So, yes.
Okay. Do you have an áo dài?
Yes, I had an áo dài.
Okay.
But we just wear it in some special event.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. And so we often know that, of course, culture can be tied to the way that we dress, the way we present ourselves. Earlier, I showed you a picture of a teacher and a monk. And I think many people would say that they are dressed like a teacher and a monk. What about me? Can you tell my background or my cultural heritage or anything from the way that I'm dressed now? I'm wearing a white business shirt. What does the way that I'm dressed tell you about me? What do you think the way that I dress communicates about? I think her microphone is gone. We can't hear you.
It's not talk about too much about your culture.
You think it doesn't?
Yes.
It doesn't reveal my culture.
Yes.
Okay. Why is that? It's not, this is not cultural?
Yeah.
Is neutral, would you say that it is neutral? Neutral or nothing, or is it neutral?
Neutral. I think it's a normal clothes when you were to the college or university.
Normal, okay. So it also suggests professional culture. Professional culture, right? Yeah. It does show a little bit about my culture. Yeah, it does show a little bit about my culture. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Do you also think that you dress differently when you go to school versus another time?
Yes, if I come to the special events, I will choose some clothes look like professor. And when I stay at home, I just wear something that is normal and feel relaxed.
Okay. Is an áo dài professional? Can you wear an áo dài in a professional setting?
Sometimes I wear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What about men in Vietnam? Do men wear an áo dài in a professional setting?
In the teacher day, people often, for example, in teacher day, people often wear the áo dài.
The men too?
I don't know what you are talking.
Man.
Men. They often wear suit.
Do they wear áo dài?
In the wedding, people, the men sometimes wear áo dài. Yes.
But not to work.
Yes, it's not to work.
But women can sometimes wear it to work.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
So this is another way we can think about how we communicate professionally in a nonverbal way. Okay?
Yes.
Of course, today we are also speaking about nonverbal communication in a business setting. And this becomes very important when we think about the business world. I want to get, before we move on, I want to get one of your male classmates involved. So can you ask one of the men in your class to give their perspective on the question? And I want to start with anyone who does this. So you have to start. If you do this, this means pick me first. Okay? So whoever does this, pick me first.
Pick someone.
So I want to start with Do Kwan.
Yes, sir.
This means pick me first, okay?
Yes, sir. Okay.
So do you have an áo dài?
I don't possess one, but my family actually have a facility to produce those kind of dress. Yeah.
Can I tell you?
Sorry.
A little bit annoying. I'm looking at the bottom of your face. Okay. Gosh, it's actually somewhat
Sorry.
very strange to look at someone's face. Anyway, so what do you think in the future for you? What will you dress like as a professional? What will you dress like as a professional?
Professional, like in a businessman or
For you, in your professional life in the future.
Yeah. Basically, suit and tie would do, or any formal clothes like shirt and pants. Yeah.
Okay. Would you wear an áo dài?
Nah, of course not.
Why not?
Because it's a kind of a holiday clothes.
But you know that in the same setting that you're just speaking of in your professional life, some of the women would be wearing an áo dài.
In like a banking industry or?
Yeah. You don't think so?
I rarely see one, but yeah, I do think so.
I assure you, I've seen it. There are women, banking professionals who wear áo dài. And women in finance and women in to work.
Teaching.
And also teaching. Of course, teaching. Teachers love to wear áo dài. Do you find it strange that more women wear áo dài than men?
Maybe they dress it better than us.
Do you think that women have more pressure to dress in a professional way than men?
Gosh, it's hard.
I mean, from what you said, I could wear a white shirt to work every day and no one would think anything strange.
Correct.
I could wear literally the same white shirt every day as long as it looks clean. But I know that in the professional world, everyone comments on the way that women dress and look. Men and women. It becomes a part of their working lives. It becomes so important that in some jobs, it becomes one of the ways that women have to spend a lot of money to communicate their ability to be professional. So, for example, do you see this? Hey, where did you go?
Me?
Yeah. Do you see
Okay.
this?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what this is?
It's a lipstick.
Yeah. Did you know that many women feel that they have to wear lipstick in order to be dressed professionally? They have to. This
Yes.
is a part of their dressing. Did you know this?
Yes, I do. I'm aware of that.
Did you know that some workplaces require women to wear makeup, especially if the women are serving the public?
And I do aware of that too. Yeah, sir. I do aware of that too, sir.
Sorry?
I do aware of that too, sir.
And they say because they want everyone in the workplace to communicate through the way that they dress a professional etiquette. So they want to use the uniform to be professional, right?
Understood.
Do you think it's fair?
Fair for both genders or?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's fair enough for the female because I'm having a really hard time to translate my thought to English. So.
Mm-hmm. Do any other people have an opinion? Do you think it's fair that women have to communicate business etiquette through lipstick? Either directly or indirectly, there's the rule. I mean, I do notice that there are many women who've been fixing their hair, their makeup, and their lipstick throughout today's session. And I wonder what you are communicating or what you think you are communicating when you are continually fixing your appearance. So, one more opinion. We are talking about communication, business and business etiquette. And one of the clearest ways we communicate is non-verbally. Non-verbally, okay? So, all of our classmates here, Feng Yi, are you there? Please turn on your camera and microphone. Chan Kwok Khan, are you there? Chan Kwok Khan, are you there?
I'm here.
Do you have a camera?
Oh, sorry, my camera is error.
All right. Phan Dang Tan. Are you there? Phan Dang Tan, are you there? All right. Everyone seems to be having technical difficulties. Lei Huang Li Chin. So please turn on your camera and microphone. Hello. So who is there? You guys are ghosting me. I'm being ghosted. Let me take a moment to absorb. Okay. Let's start again. Where's our class monitor?
I'm here.
So class monitor, we're still going through our class survey, and I would like for you to choose one of your classmates to help us go through. We're still looking at question number 5, and business dress, business etiquette, and business attire. I would like for you to get one of your classmates to turn on their camera and turn on their microphone and speak about their ideas about business and professional dress. Okay? So I will wait.
I think Mai Hà.
Are you there, Maiha?
Yes.
Can we see you? Because I only see your forehead. Hello, are you there, Maiha?
I turn on this camera.
Okay. It's difficult to speak with you seriously, and we can only see the top of your head. Is there any way that we could look at your face to face? Is it possible to adjust so that we can see you? So you need to fix your hair, okay? All right. Maiha,
Yes.
your hair is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking it down to show to us. Do you feel more comfortable showing yourself on camera with your hair like this?
Yes.
You feel more comfortable? Hello. Maiha.
I am listening.
Yes, I'm asking you if you feel more comfortable when you take down your hair, as you just did, and wear it like this. Do you feel more comfortable?
I very comfortable. Is this my club?
Do you think it's more professional? Can you hear me okay? Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I think I feel it's okay.
Is this professional, a professional look for you? Is this a professional look? Do you understand my question? I'm not sure she has understood my question. Has anyone understood my question? Maiha?
Could you ask us again?
Yes. I'm going to type my question in the chat area, okay?
Yes.
Mhm. I'm not sure if she's understood the question. I want to ask someone else, because this actually becomes a really important way that we start to communicate who we are as people professionally. And it's one that I want you to think critically about. And one way that I want us to think critically about it is to actually see and become more self-aware of ourselves as professionals. How is it that we will build ourselves as a professional person, and how will we use our bodies to communicate this? Even in the context of digital communication, we can see that the way that we dress in this square becomes our new professional self. I don't want our classmate Maiha to be embarrassed, but I know that we all adjust our hair, our makeup, and the ways that we dress so that we can look professional. Many of you had not expected to use your cameras today, and you perhaps do not feel comfortable being on camera. This, of course, is why we're using the classroom environment, so that you can become more comfortable to using your cameras. Now, I also observed that many of you are very resistant to using your cameras. Even, ironically, when we're talking about business etiquette. And part of business etiquette, of course, is to be present. Is to be present. And one way that we've discussed in this session already is how we use nonverbal communication to communicate. And one of the ways that we use nonverbal communication to be present is to show with our body languages that we're looking at each other, that we're listening to each other. And one way to do that in the digital format is to look at one another. Another way that we're discussing now, of course, is how we dress. But I want us to think very critically about the different ways that we use appearance to communicate and how we can more effectively use our appearances to communicate as confident professionals, okay? One of the ways that we undermine our own confidence in being an effective communicator is, of course, our lack of confidence in using an online camera, a camera in an online meeting. When we have excuses or when we say that, oh, I can't use my camera because of this, it actually undermines our own credibility. So no matter what we say after that, there's always this tinge of thought of, this person is really not that confident in what they say. And it inserts a kind of doubt in what you want to say. Equally, when we're constantly fixing the way that we look, we communicate that we are unsure, okay? We communicate that we're unsure of what it is that we want to say and that we're even unable to focus. Oftentimes when we're communicating face to face, we keep looking and looking and looking to our phones, and we often forget that we're communicating to the people in front of us that they're not so important. They're not as important as any message that I could possibly get on my phone, even when we're in a scheduled meeting. So yes, we're looking at a very simple set of questions here in our survey about the kinds of cultures that we are a part of and how that impacts our communication, and crucially, how we can use this knowledge to empower ourselves to communicate in professional ways that we can take charge of, all right? So let's use our time together to really take charge of how we communicate. So let's move to the next student and see if we can get someone else who wants to really take charge and use this time to communicate in a more communicative and direct way. Kao Kim Nyan, are you there? Kao Kim Nyan. Tin Hao, are you there? Tin Hao.
Yes.
Do you have a camera?
Yeah.
Can I see you?
Yeah.
There you are. Being present. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. Now, tell me 3 things that you do to dress professionally. Tell me 3 things you do to make sure that you appear professionally when you need to go for professional something, school, work. What do you do?
I think it's new clothes.
Okay, so.
Good hair and makeup.
Okay, so we often pay close attention to our clothes, our hair. Do you wear lipstick?
Yeah.
Okay, many people do. What are some other ways that we try to present ourselves as professional? Do you speak differently when you speak professionally?
I don't know.
Do you talk differently when you're in class or you're at work?
Yes.
Okay. How would you describe the difference? How would you describe the difference?
I think in school I basic then
Again, one more time. Can you tell me again? I didn't hear you.
I'm thinking.
And again, I always want to invite others to respond in the chat area. How else do we communicate, either visually or in the way that we speak professionally? First, I'm asking you, not asking Google, I'm asking you guys, because I know that you already have experience in communicating and visually and through speech and through behavior in more professional ways. So let's look at that. What is that? What do we do? Who can help us here? And let's try and write down some answers. So what can you write down? I want to take a moment to do that. How would you compare, what do you do to be more professional? Can you write in the chat area? I want to give you a moment to do that. So please go right ahead. All right, you guys, seriously, I'm looking for you to respond. What are some of the ways that you know already that you need to change or adjust to communicate in a more professional way? Either, as I said, visually or in the way that you behave or talk. How would you describe what that means to be more professionally, to dress more professionally, to talk more professionally? What does that mean for you? As we've already mentioned, part of what that means for me often is very simple. I can always wear a simple white shirt like this and people will perceive that I am more professional. What about you? Let me ask you, Vanan Buiti,
I'm here.
what are some ways that you are aware that people dress or act more professionally?
Maybe vest. some shirts,
Okay.
white shirts,
Okay.
and
Is that for man, woman, or both?
I think both.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
For women, they can wear some long dress. For men, they should use trousers.
Trousers. Okay. So men should have trousers.
Yeah.
Women can have dresses, skirts, blouses, many more options for women to be professional.
What?
You said dress?
Long dress. Yeah.
Skirt?
Yeah.
Skirt?
Skirt. Yeah.
Women can also wear trousers?
Trousers for men.
Only for men, not for women?
For women too. Sorry.
Okay. So women have more options. And of course, this one.
Yeah. Just lipstick.
Is it expensive?
What? Expensive?
Yeah.
I think no, it's not expensive.
You think it's not expensive?
Not too expensive.
Not too expensive.
And it depends on brand.
It depends on the brand.
Yeah.
And as you know, when you get older and you start working, you will want a better brand. I'm
Yes.
sure. So
actually, I think for lipstick, we want better brand just for showing to friend and talk about money. Because for me the quality same.
Yeah, yeah. As exactly. In fact, you can have many different brands of lipstick, and it's one of the most important articles of makeup. In fact, it is, as I mentioned, and many companies have tried to formally require women to wear lipstick in order to be professional, accepted into the professional culture. Yeah. And it's not cheap. In fact, it's not. Over a lifetime, over your working life, it amounts to about 14,000 British pounds over your working life.
Yeah.
That's 14,000 British pounds. That was the average for 2007. I don't know exactly what it is now. Okay. Now I want to move on and I want you to continue with the next question. We already answered this question without knowing it. Do you think the way that you dress reveals your gender identity? Can someone know your gender from the way that you dress?
I think yes. Absolutely.
Okay. And I think for many, many people, we think absolutely. How about you, Huang Jiang?
Hương Giang.
Same question.
Yes.
Same question.
I think it depends on, because some clothes I think is the unisex. So for example, like a man can wear the pink shirt, and people always assume like pink for the girls and the blue for boys. But if the man wear the pink shirt, it's not sure what this man will be the girl or something. And maybe it's done like they would like to wear like the tomboy, you know, that is not it not reflect that their gender. I think so.
Yes. And I really agree with you. And I think that there are, at this generation, there are many more people who are tolerant of, as you say, tomboys, or they're tolerant of boys who wear lipstick. I think people in your generation are not very surprised if they see a tomboy or a tomgirl, I guess you can say. I don't know. Do you think this is different for different generations? Do you think your grandparents or parents have a different opinion?
Yes, I think so because I saw that very. There are a lot of family with the old generation. They still think that the boy should be well like some color belong to the boys like blue, and they cannot wear the colorful shirt like pink or some purple, like some color that they think that this belong to girl, and the boy cannot wear like this.
Yes, I think there are many people who are much more influenced by this kind of thinking than they believe. I agree with you. And it has a large influence on how we present ourselves professionally, how we choose to present ourselves professionally. You're absolutely right. This is why in the past, did you know when I was your age in the 90s, we were taught that for a professional man, we had to wear a gray or a brown or a blue suit. Not black. Black is only for the nighttime or for funerals. So gray, brown, or blue only. Can you imagine such a small color you can choose from to wear only because you're a man? It feels very suffocating. So what about the last question? I want you to take us to the last part of number 5. The way I talk reveals my social class, reveals if I'm rich or if I'm poor. Do you think rich people and poor people talk differently? Do you think so, Huang Jiang?
I think not at all.
Not at all?
Yeah, I don't think. I think it depends on some specific situation, but for overall, I think it's not very different between the rich and the poor.
Mm-hmm. It's not very different between the rich and poor. I want to ask a few other opinions about this. What do others think? Call on one of your classmates and let's get another perspective. Does the way we talk, or even the way that we dress, reveal if we are wealthier or poor? Call on one of your classmates and let's see an additional perspective. Who's one of your classmates who has a microphone, camera?
I work for Thu Thị Hiền.
Hello. Hien Hien. How are you? Well, hopefully we can be a bit more so after we have a bit of a conversation together. Do you think that the way that we talk reveals if we are richer or poor? Okay. And this is something very interesting that we think about today, brand and luxury brands. Luxury brands. So many people can wear luxury branded things, Louis Vuitton, Prada, Gucci. Do you know these brands? There is a mall in Hanoi. Oh my God, they have all of my favorite brands. Do you know the big mall, luxury mall in Hanoi? It's by Huan King Lake. They have Kenzo, Yves Saint Laurent, Dior, they have everything. It's amazing. But do only rich people shop there? It's very expensive. Very, very expensive. Do you think only rich people shop there? Hmm? I wonder if people are more interested in dressing in luxury clothes because they want they want to show wealth. They want to show that they have some money. I think many people dress in these very popular brand names because they want to be associated with money. What do you think? Does anyone else have an opinion? Do you have an opinion?
I
Do we use the way that we dress to show money?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Do you like luxury brands?
I like, but I don't have enough money to show to buy to buy this one and so. And actually, for me, just when I choose dress, I just choose the kind of dress I wear look beautiful. What can show I have a good body or maybe look cute.
So if you want to, you know that we have to make effort to craft our bodies in this ways. And that, of course, is the point, is that we we have an idea of what looking cute means. And we want to look cute because it also makes us feel good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we feel good, we also feel more comfortable to communicate, to be with people. So when I talk about fashion, of course, it is just to look, but we know there is an element of feeling, looking good and feeling good, and that we can communicate this through the way that we both dress, act, and of course, how we speak. I want to ask you, what about the next two questions? Because these are two groundbreaking questions. So the first question, of course, is, did most people where you grew up, were most people like you? So you can think that most people spoke your language?
Yes.
Yeah. Only one person in your group did not grow up like everyone else. We talk more about some of the skills that we gather from having this minority perspective. And as you can see, even one student has switched. No, let's see. Some grew up in an extremely multicultural environment. I wonder if any of you went to a school where you used English when you were young. This also has a huge influence on how we interact with the world. There's one more way that we think about the culture of communication and how it is evolving. And here is the last one, and it's almost the same as the first question, is your age. So first I want you to answer this question. How did you answer this question? At what age did you get your first smartphone? How old were you when you got your first smartphone?
12.
12 years old.
Yes.
Wow, okay. And there are a few of you, 10 to 12 years old, and some were 13 to 15. So most all of you got a smartphone when you were teenagers, even young teenagers. One of you got a smartphone when you were an adult. And of course, all of us have smartphones now. Do you think smartphones influence the way that we communicate face to face?
Yeah.
Yes? How are some of the ways that you think smartphones can influence how we communicate face to face?
Could you speak again? I can't hear clearly.
How do you think smartphones have influenced how we communicate face to face?
I think FaceTime.
Sorry?
FaceTime.
What about FaceTime?
FaceTime video. We can see each other.
Okay, so we can see each other in modern communication. Yeah. What else? That's an important way that we use for business, but what about, my question is for face-to-face communication? Face-to-face. Do you think that smartphones impact face-to-face communication?
Yes. Actually, smartphone not good for me face to face. Sometimes not good. Huh?
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, because now we can now when people meet each other, they always can use phone like that, and nobody talk to each other. Just maybe for example, just like that. The picture you show.
Okay. What do you see in the picture?
The girl use phone to chatting with friend, and man eating and look at girl and the woman.
Okay. So they're not really communicating.
No.
Okay. And do you think this is changing the conversation? Changing how they communicate? Do you think the smartphone is changing the interaction you can see?
Yes.
How? Any others you want to chat in the chat room? How is the smartphone changing the communication?
People now they scared to be cold. They just want to text to each other.
Okay. They just want to text to each other.
Yes.
Okay. And how does that change face-to-face communication? You said people want to be cold?
No, if they receive a call, they are not unwilling. They are unwilling to receive to reply. They just deny the call, and they just want to text.
Okay. Now I have to ask myself if sometimes we are getting more used to a certain kind of communication. What do you see on the screen here?
Everybody use smartphone when meet each other.
Yeah, a lot of smartphone usage together. So, can you read the box on the right side of the screen? We're starting to study this phenomenon and understand it a bit more. Can you read the box for me? Let's see. Who was that just speaking? Tui An, are you there?
Yes.
Can you read the box for us that's on the right side of the screen?
Every conversation, we get a little bit better at reading people, striking up a conversation and maintaining a conversation, says Robert. Some people are becoming conversational cowards. They lack the willingness to have difficult face-to-face conversation, and they are cultivating those skills.
Okay. What do you think he's talking about here?
I think that people lack the willingness to face-to-face conversation because they addicted to smartphone.
Do you think this is true? Do you agree with this?
Yes, totally.
Okay. Why, may I ask? Why do you see this, or how do you see this around you, or how are you aware of this?
Like I hang out with my friends. They usually use smartphone when we talking, and I always to taught to them that don't use smartphone when we were talking, we'll hang out. And if you want to chat or use mobile phone, we just go home and no hang out anymore.
And I think also here he's saying is that we get used to it. It becomes normal for us. So I want you guys to have the chance to explore this face-to-face communication a little bit more widely. Okay? There is evidence that the way that the smartphone is changing us is good and bad. So we want to think critically about it, okay? We want to think critically about this topic because, as you said, most of you have had smartphones since you were teenagers, and you're going to work and living with people who are both younger and older than you, and all of our experiences and relationships to the smartphone can be radically different and at times cause conflict. According to social psychologist Dr. Sherry Turkle, the smartphone is like a magic genie, gives you 3 promises. You know, like Aladdin and the genie? It gives you 3 promises. The first is you're always surrounded by your friends. You'll never have to be alone. You can always reach out to your friends. So if you have your phone, you always have your friends with you. You're never alone. Of course, this is really problematic because, as you can see from the pictures, even when we have the opportunity to have our friends with us face to face, this thing is so powerful that we start to choose our digital friends or even communicating with our friends virtually, even when there's a person before us. We prefer virtual communication. It's more interesting and attractive for us. So even when we're together, even when we're not alone, like you see the people here, we're alone. The second promise is that our voice will be heard. There's always someone to listen to us. No matter what I think, no matter what I want to say, finally, someone will listen to me. I can post, I can share, I can text, I can comment, I can send a mail, I can do so many things. I can write a comment on a TikTok video, and my ideas are out there in the world. So at any time of day, anywhere, I can have someone hear my voice. I can always be heard through this smartphone. And that is a very big promise. The third one is I can pay attention to what I want to when I want to. So even if I'm driving, I can drive, or even if I'm caring for my child, or even if I'm teaching, or even if I'm working, I can shift my attention as much as I want to. I can even multitask. That's the promise. But of course, we know from the research from all of these areas that that's not in fact true. We can't drive and use our mobile phones. We cause fatal accidents. We can't drive and work at the same time. It decreases the quality of both. We can't use our mobile phones and even have a talk between 2 people, because even this decreases the quality of the conversation. Because this says I can escape at any moment, so no one will have the opportunity to say anything too profound. So, what do you think? Is it worth the promise? How are smartphones impacting the way people communicate? How do smartphones impact the way people communicate? I want you in groups to discuss this and think of one positive and one negative how are smartphones impacting the way that people communicate? Okay, I want you to think of one positive example and one negative example. One way that people are communicating more or better or more effectively, and one way that people are doing this less. I want to put you in groups and just give you a few minutes to discuss, and I want you to elect a person from your group to give us your responses, okay? So very briefly, you'll just have 1 minute to tell us when you come back from the group, but I'll give you a few minutes to discuss how are smartphones impacting the way we communicate, all right? So where's our class monitor? Are you there, class monitor?
Yes.
All right. So do you understand the question? How do smartphones impact the way we communicate?
Yes.
One, I want you to discuss in a group and decide on one positive example and one negative example, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you into groups, and the objective of the group is two things. First, to talk about it, okay? I want you to talk about different ideas, all right? And the second is to choose one positive and one negative example, okay? Do you understand?
Yes.
Can you tell me again, what are you supposed to do in the group?
Discuss about smartphone impact communication, and give many different idea about this point. And let's give one example about positive and one example positive.
Yeah, one positive, one negative example, okay? That's it.
Yes.
Now, I hope that I can put you into groups. Yes, I'm going to put you into groups, and I'm going to check in with you in 7 minutes, okay? So I want you guys to I'm going to put you into 4 groups. Alrighty? Okay?
Yes.
All right, are you ready to go?
Okay.
All right. So let me make sure. Okay, all right, all ready.